for it, but they wanted to duck their responsibility. It was sort of like the Democrats and the they didn't want to be on record. That way, if the war went badly, they could blame the president. That's exactly what happened. Now, how many candidates are backtracking and discussing, and now they're discussing the war? And it's too late. The Constitution, the founder says you discuss the war and you don't go to war unless there's a declaration, and I think it's a tragedy.
Ron Paul is my guest today. He's a Republican candidate for presidency. His poll numbers are good, but his ground support is phenomenal. Every time you turn around, there seems to be another person who is telling us that they've converted to Ron Paul. You're kind of famous for your road signs. You've got a campaign. A lot of people who own sign companies, I think, are Ron Paul supporters, because you've got a lot of people with sign companies or with Ron Paul signs out there. I'll tell you what, I didn't finish my train of thought. I apologize. You know why I think we haven't declared war since World War II? Because I think we've got the mentality that if we declare war, we've got to drop the bomb. In World War II, we were drawn in, we declared war, and we ended it by dropping the bomb. It's the old Indiana Jones. The guy comes to a gunfight with a knife, and you take him out. I think we as Americans are afraid that if we actually declare war, then we have the obligation to win that war. We know how to win the war, and that's drop the bomb, and we're afraid to do that again. And maybe we should be afraid, but that's why I think we're afraid to declare war.
I think that's a possibility. I think also...
How about we just have been fighting bunk war since 2000?
Yeah, and there's a reason for that. I think it's because of the trend toward internationalism. Truman did an atrocious thing. He set this thing off. Shortly after the UN was decided, he went to war unilaterally without even consulting the Congress. But the Congress obliged and gave him the money. But he went under instructions from the UN. Not the Constitution and not from the Congress, but the UN. And even on this resolution, the president got his so-called authority, that we transferred this power to the president to go to war. It said to enforce UN resolutions. This means it's international politics that is involved, and that is part of the reasons that we don't declare and we don't win the wars. And maybe it is the fear of what it might take. I don't think you would have to do that. But my argument is, if this country has to go to war, we should declare it. We should all be behind it. We should go fight it and get it over with and come on home. But this perpetual occupation is the thorn in the side. This is why we aggravate enough people, and Osama bin Laden, matter of fact, delights in us being over there, because his recruiting has gone sky high, because it's so much easier to recruit his radicals and the people who hate us when we're on their country building air bases and killing a lot of Arabs.
Ron Paul is my guest today. All right, let's just say for a moment, your message is on target, and that it's what this country needs, but in this election cycle it doesn't take hold, and you're not the individual that's chosen to be the Republican candidate. I've been saying on this radio station for a long time, in fact, I have a little sticky note right up here that says revolution, because I agree with a lot of the things you say, and that this country needs a revolution. I'm not saying armed by any means, but it needs a revolution of thoughts and ideas. Many of them come from the same place you do. What do we need to do in this country to make sure that your ideas continue to grow? Well, first of all, take hold. Continue to grow, so eventually they do become the standard platform of a party that can win a presidential election. And please, sir, I'm not saying you can't. I just want to look forward, because in Iowa we are, 2 weeks from tomorrow? We are less than a year for this entire country. If your ideas can't take hold within this short period of time, how do we as Paul supporters make sure that in 4 years or in another election cycle that we're looking at the norm rather than a surge?
Yeah, I think the enthusiasm there and the momentum is there, because if you look at our campaign, it's almost spontaneous, almost run on automatic pilot. If you look at the fundraising, we don't even do it. Just, yesterday there was more than $6 million raised, and we had nothing to do with it. The numbers of people who are joining, 25,000 new supporters that never donated to us, donated yesterday. So I don't think even if I wanted to stop the movement, I could, because I think the time has come. You know, Victor Hugo said, armies can't stop an idea whose time has come. And I think everything is coming together, whether it's the war, whether it's the economy, whether it's the dollar, whether it's the spending, whether it's the obligations for future entitlements. It's all coming together.
So do I hear you saying that maybe the revolution is now?
Well, the supporters in our campaign call it a revolution, and like you say, it should be a peaceful revolution of ideas. I think it's in motion, and I say at my rallies, I do not think they will be able to slow it up. And I don't brag, I don't claim that are on the verge of great victory.
I don't hear that from you.
And I say, regardless of what happens, there will be no way that they can silence this movement. I think it's open, and then we have this weapon, which is called the internet, to spread our message, and great talk shows. The message can't get out without the control of 3 or 4 major TV networks. So
yeah.
the technique and the vehicle is there, the frustration is there, and the answers are there. So I would say it would be very, very hard to suppress this movement.
You don't have to say it. It doesn't have to come out of your mouth. But it is now officially in Mac's world called the Clinton News Network, not the cable news network.
You're about 15 years too late for that. But about the followers, because this is something that worries me. I watched last night your appearance on PBS's Now, talking about the internet phenomenon, and according to them, that was the first time that you had ever said, I do not want contributions from racists and white supremacists. And I assume PBS
why would anybody want that?
Well, I was going to say, you have a lot of support from, if you go to Stormfront, a neo-Nazi website, you're right there. They love you. The 9/11 truthers, who are kind of kooky, the militia types.
Well, they're not automatically bad people.
No, 9/11 truthers, racists, conspiracy.
People are bad. I hate to see the list of people who like you. Let's not get into the list of people who like you.
I haven't seen you come out and say, guys, look, thanks, but no thanks for the support. The head of Stormfront sends you money. You should send it back.
I don't even know who the Stormfront is. But I don't. We got 57,000 people donated yesterday. Do you think I'm going to monitor that? And besides, what if you've come up and whoever the people you're talking about, and you say, well, they gave you $100. You better send that back, or you're morally corrupt. Why should I give it back to them? They might spend it to promote ideas you don't even like.
Send it to the NAACP for all I care.
Did Hillary send that money back from that crooked Chinese guy?
I think she sent the
crooked
money back.
We're going to make sure we throw stones if we're living in glass houses.
What I'm saying is, yes, she did.
Ron, tell me this. Now, I'm sorry, I'm ignorant of this. What type of doctor are you?
I'm OBGYN.
Okay. Can you tell me what that does for you as a presidential candidate? What does that bring to your candidacy?
I think it softens my personality, certainly, and certainly it fits into peace and harmony and freedom of choice. And to me, it makes a difference. I think my approach is different, and I don't know whether it's only because I'm a doctor, but there is a difference if you spend a lifetime, delivering 4,000 babies, willing to get up in the middle of the night. I think it's more of love and peace and freedom and prosperity. People look at that because I think it's a much softer approach. I know I'm not perfect at never mentioning my opponent's name, but basically I'm not running against somebody. So-and-so did this, so-and-so did this. So I try very hard not to do that and talk about the positive aspect of how freedom brings people together and how liberalism and socialism and welfareism divides people, because everybody's clawing at each other in Washington to finally get back some of their money and get control of the government. And I want the government so small that nobody's motivated to go to Washington to get control of the government.
Ron, this is my favorite liberal, Bruce Strone, who's with the American Liberal Majority Action Committee. He's from this long organization, but he has a question for you.
Well, and I'm going to preface this by saying I'm one of the people who thinks that we've done a very bad job with welfare, but not because we've got too much into it, but because we've let way too many people fall off the side by the cuts we've done in an unintelligent way, as an aside. But going beyond that, I want to go back to what you said about the Constitution and smaller government, and it's a question that I have for all the smaller government candidates that I talk to, and it would be, I want to take you back in the time machine. It's 1948, we're in Washington, D.C., you're the president instead of Eisenhower or Truman or whoever it was at that moment that decided we have to have an interstate highway system across the United States that's funded by the federal government. Would you build it or wouldn't you?
Well, it wasn't in 48. It was a little bit later. It was
That was
in
what, 56?
It was in the 50s, and it was
Eisenhower.
by Eisenhower. But he, at that time, had enough respect for the Constitution. Remember when they put prohibition of alcohol, they changed the Constitution? Today, they don't use that for the drug laws. Back then, Eisenhower had enough respect for the Constitution, he knew he wasn't allowed to. So he rationalized, he said, he justified it in the legislation that this was for national defense.